We're going to look now at the two technical concepts of positivism and humanism. First, we look at positivism. Now, when we want to show that knowledge exists, we want to show that experience plays an important role in that. The demonstration of knowledge through experience is the basis of the concept of positivism. Empiricism was not a single strand of thought. That is, it was not monolithic. It had followers, and these followers split into different schools of thought, including what we call the positivists and the humanists. Now, positivists or positivism as a variant of empiricism stresses simply that valid knowledge is obtained through experience and sensations which are derived from an external objective reality. This means that for any knowledge to be scientific, it must be gathered through a rigorous observation of events or phenomena from which general laws about reality can be constructed. It also implies that scientific inquiries are directed towards external objective realities. To engage in scientific endeavor, therefore, means that the acceptance of the scientific method and the object of scientific inquiry is external objective reality and not subjective beliefs and values. The acceptance of the scientific method of inquiring about knowledge is also an acceptance of a belief in scientism. According to John Wormuth, quote, "Scientism is a belief that science and the scientific method are the only reliable natural means of acquiring knowledge." Two implications of a belief in scientism are: one, that every branch of scientific knowledge is coexistent with the entire field of knowledge. B, that although the various fields of science differ in their techniques, they all accept the same methodological principle, which includes the following approaches of the scientific method, namely careful observation, hypothesis formulation, experimentation, verification, and theory formulation. Positivism asserts the primacy of observation in assessing the truth of statements of facts, and holds that metaphysical and subjective arguments that are not based on observable data are meaningless. Positivism is an epistemological, the philosophy of knowledge, perspective, and philosophy of science, which holds that the only authentic knowledge is that which is based on sense, experience, and positive verification. The positivist approach has been a recent theme of the history of Western thought, from the ancient Greeks to the present day. The concept was developed in the early 19th century by the philosopher and founding sociologist Auguste Comte as an approach of science deriving from Enlightenment thinkers like Pierre-Simon Laplace and many others. Comte called the scientific method as replacing metaphysics in the history of thought, and also observed the circular dependence of theory and observation in the scientific position of of knowledge. Sociological positivism was later expanded by Emile Durkheim as a foundation to social research. At the turn of the 20th century, the first wave of German sociologists, including Max Weber and Georg Simmel, rejected the stricter elements of the doctrine, presenting anti-positivist sociology. The point at issue about the scientific method is that what matters most in any scientific endeavor is the method by which the knowledge about any aspect of reality is acquired. So, we want you to give 4 examples of knowledge you have acquired through your experience. We'll move on now to humanism. Now, the phrase science and method refers collectively to a regular series of steps which begins with observation. The scientist rejects as unproven any conclusion that is not supported by observed facts. In the process of thinking, one major precept is a refusal to be consistent with any one answer to a problem. Scholars do this often, especially when another scholar offers an answer to an existing problem. The other scholar will examine the answer very critically in terms of the strengths and weaknesses of the answer. When an answer is rejected, the scholar proposes an alternative answer because it is not proper to leave a vacuum in a controversial discussion. Humanism, as a variant of empiricism, arose as a result of the criticism levied against positivism. The criticisms of the humanist school of emphasis places emphasis on quote and unquote existential view of society. That is, society and its institutions should be analyzed in terms of the shared realities and actions of individuals as they understand them. The humanists attack the applicability of the scientific method to the social sciences and sociology in particular. The American Humanist Association explains in straightforward terms exactly what the modern humanist philosophy is about. They summarize the basic ideas held in common by both religion and secular humanists as follows. A, that humanism is one of those philosophies for people who think for themselves. There is no area of thought that a humanist is afraid to challenge and explore. 2, humanism is a philosophy focused upon human means for comprehending reality. The humanists make no claims to possess or have access to supposed transcendent knowledge. Humanism is a philosophy of reason and science in the pursuit of knowledge. Therefore, when it comes to the question of the most valid means of acquiring knowledge of the world, humanists reject arbitrary faith, authority, revelation, and altered states of consciousness. Humanism is a philosophy of imagination. They recognize that intuitive feelings, hunches, speculation, flashness of inspiration, emotion, altered states of consciousness, and even religious experience, while not valid means to acquire knowledge, remain useful sources of ideas that can lead us to new ways of looking at the world. These ideas, after they have been assessed rationally for their usefulness, can then be put to work, often as alternate approaches for solving problems. Humanism is a philosophy for the here and now. Humanists regard human values as making sense only in the context of human life, rather than in the promise of a supposed life after death. Humanism is a philosophy of compassion. Humanist ethics is solely concerned with meeting human needs and answering human problems for both the individual and society, and devotes no attention to the satisfaction of the desires of supposed theological entities. Humanism is a realistic philosophy. It recognizes the existence of moral dilemmas, the need for careful consideration of immediate and future consequences in the moral decision making. Humanism is in tune with the science of today. Humanists therefore recognize that we live in a natural universe of great size and age, that we evolve on the planet over a long period of time, that there is no compelling evidence for a separable, quote-unquote, soul, and that human beings have certain built-in needs that effectively form the basis for any human-oriented value system. Humanism is in tune with today's enlightened social thought. They are committed to civil liberties, human rights, church-state separation, the extension of participatory democracy, not only in government, but in the workplace and education, an expansion of global consciousness, an exchange of products and ideas internationally, and an open-ended approach to solving social problems, an approach that allows for the testing of new alternatives. Humanism is in tune with the new technological developments, and they are willing to take part in emerging scientific and technological discoveries in order to exercise their moral influence on these revolutions as they come about, especially in the interest of protecting the environment. Humanism is, in sum, a philosophy for those in love with life. Humanists take responsibility for their own lives and relish the adventure of being part of new discoveries, seeking new knowledge, exploring new options, instead of finding solace in prefabricated answers to the great questions of life. Humanists enjoy the open-endedness of the quest and the freedom of discovery that this entails. We'll ask you to name 2 examples of actions that you would consider humanist.